Everyone, Josh Silver, founder of Pulse Energy Technologies in Los Angeles. Hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to take a minute here and hop on and do a couple things. First, I want to thank everybody for the response to the previous video that I did. I have not gotten a chance to reply to everybody's direct message. I will get back to you. A lot of you guys had some really great and detailed questions, and it takes a little bit of time to give you a good, detailed, complex answer. But in any event, I want to take a minute to hop on here to address a couple of things. First, when people are asking what is solid state and what is spark, and also before I do that, I just want to tell you what I do and my personal experience in relation to this is that the single biggest problem that I see in our industry right now is the infighting going on between what people brand as high power, as low power, as solid state, as spark, as different wave signs and everything. I want you guys to know I've been part of a CEO's group where once a month I meet with CEOs in all different industries, and we all support each other and help each other with advice with things with our companies. And they genuinely laugh at our industry. And I heard a great analogy at a meeting a couple of months ago, and the analogy I got was it is like Schwinn and Hertz and Delta and all of these other companies that make different types of modes of transportation all arguing, telling you, no, don't take a roller skate, take an airplane. Or don't ride your bike, take a car. They are all vastly different technologies, vastly different mechanisms of action. And instead of all of us working to support the fact that we all make modes of transportation, everybody is fighting about which one is best regardless of the situation. And it has put a damper on our industry and has significantly affected the growth of it. So for anybody out there, and I know there's a bunch of you guys that are our customers on this group, we never talk about don't buy solid state, don't buy this, don't buy the low power. We talk about what is the best fit for the person and the need based on the science that's out there. And when you don't do that, you're failing everybody else in the industry. So I just wanted to start with that particular part so everybody knows how we approach things and really how it works. And the second part of this video I want to do is first dive into the technology itself and the difference between solid state and spark. For the next part of this video, to explain everything, and just so you guys understand, I usually do a 2 to 2.5 day training course that goes over this in detail. So putting this in a 1 or 2 minute video, I'm trying to get it as succinct as possible. Is Tesla is the guy that we all accredit to the advent of PEMF therapy, whether you're high power, low power, solid state, military state, doesn't matter. Everybody talks about how Tesla is the godfather of PEMF technology. Well, what was he doing to get there, okay? Tesla was studying lightning and the signature of lightning. He was studying the frequencies that came off the bolt of lightning, the energy that was released, the discharge, the measurements of all of that, as well as the ozone that was produced. And at some point he created a small company called the Tesla Electrotherapeutic Company that actually made different devices that were then recreated by a guy named H.G. Fisher in the 30s and then sold out of the Sears catalogs. And these were all small, tiny little cathode-based spark chamber devices that were creating little bolts of lightning. The reason they were doing that is twofold, was the waveform that it was creating and also the frequencies reached. When you have a bolt of lightning that happens naturally, the hertz is about 0.25 hertz to 250,000 megahertz, or 2.5 gigahertz. A huge broadband discharge across the entire electromagnetic spectrum that happens naturally. A physicist that I used to work with years ago gave us a great analogy to understand it. It's like a child walking into a room and putting their hand on every single key of the piano and hitting them all at once, exciting all the frequencies all at the same time. That is spark chamber. That is what Tesla did. That is what the PEMF machine did. That's what my company does and a couple other spark chamber manufacturers out there. To create that spark, usually what we're doing is, as people know in the description, is we have a controlled chamber that has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many bits of different types of metallic substances, and depending on how many frequencies you want, and some of the proprietary stuff, it depends on the substance, and a bolt of lightning is jumping the gap, and slowly but surely the metal inside is being burnt off or worn off. And yes, over time it does need adjustment. Think of this like the eraser on your old number 2 pencil is when you erase one side, over a while you need to turn it and rotate it. So knowing all that, and that's 120 years old, why wouldn't myself and a couple other manufacturers just do something that doesn't seem to, what people are putting in these threads, need maintenance? Because we're not talking about the same technology. Solid state is not what the high power manufacturers or the spark chamber people equate to true PEMF. And the reason being is the intention of Tesla and the development of PEMF. High power PEMF, or true pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, doesn't have one function, it has two. It creates a standing, static electromagnetic field that we as users feel when we feel a mild muscle contraction. It also should create something else called cellular or nuclear magnetic resonance. What is that? That's when you hold the applicator a foot away, let's say from a horse or a person, and they go, oh my God, I feel it right in my bad spot. That's my injury from 12 years ago. How does it know? Because there's two functions of PEMF. That is exactly what Tesla discovered when he saw the waveform and the energy discharge on a spark chamber machines. So when you get to a solid state device, what is that? A solid state device, whether it's high power or low power, is a computer chip. In the older days, Siemens used to make something called the thyristor system that was a bunch of miniature switches that would snap back and forth in which to recreate the signal. Now it's now done by computers. That it's attempting to recreate the frequency discharge. The problem in that, and when I say the problem, it's not a knock, is the problem in the comparisons that we are all having is it's not the same mechanism of action, it's not the same pathway, it's not the same end result, it's not the same frequency discharge, it's not the same signal. So we are comparing two different technologies and saying, and I'm giving as an example, not my company, a magna wave at 20-something thousand and a pulse sender is at 20-something thousand, or both of those at 30-something thousand. One is better than the other because one doesn't break down. One is doing something totally different. And this isn't an opinion, this is science. Somebody here in the background is saying, well, how do you know? Well, I've been to the actual laboratories where we've done testing on our machine, on 5 of the other competitors, both solid state and spark, so that way we can see the frequencies, the charge, the discharge, the actual signal or waveform. Okay? And when I talk about other types of technologies, when we talk about solid state, what solid state is doing, going back to that analogy, is when I gave the piano analogy, a spark chamber is literally exciting all of the frequencies at once. Solid state, whether it's high power or low power, is choosing or selecting a specific set of those frequencies and hitting only those. So instead of a 5-year-old putting both of their arms on the keys of all of the piano, hitting them all at once, it is 3 fingers or 5 fingers at a certain set. And that is what is happening. Again, this isn't a debate, this is scientifically the mechanism of action. The other byproduct of that is the actual waveform of the signal is changed. It's different. The one that is found in nature from a lightning bolt looks almost similar to a human heartbeat. Some people call it a sawtooth. Okay, but that is more of a low-powered one. A more high-powered one, or one that creates electro or cellular magnetic resonance, has a longer waveform. So here's how you understand that, is when you take a tuning fork and you hit the tuning fork, you hear the initial wong. And as that dissipates, that is cellular magnetic resonance. That is the key to PEMF therapy, why it worked in a certain way for 100 years, and why I'll tell you for myself, for my company, and I know of another manufacturer out there that does spark, we won't go to anything else. And the reason being is we will be sacrificing clinical outcomes that is based on everything that the science predicates with PEMF. Okay, I don't usually have notes, but because I wanted to do a pretty detailed video for you guys, I got like 1 page of little chicken scratch, and I want to make sure that I cover everything. And that's the biggest thing, is solid state devices, you don't have cellular magnetic resonance. And when people hop on the comments, the spark chamber people, they can tell you this, is they'll have people that sometimes will use it on their bad shoulder and get a session and feel it go right to the bad spot. And the next day or two, they come around and they are not using the machine. They are near the machine and they go, oh my goodness, I feel it a little bit in my arm and I'm a foot away. That's because frequencies and vibrations travel, they harmonize, they resonate. So to wrap all of this thing up, for the person that had sent me a DM this morning saying, what does PEMF do, as short as possible, I will give you a 1-word answer. The intention of PEMF, what PEMF's outcome should be, is homeostasis. That's what it's doing. If you have any questions, DM me. There's a lot more detailed answers that I can give, but this is as short as possible so I can explain the difference. Oh, and before I go, when we talk about, I want to say one more thing about solid state. If people are talking about reliability, absolutely. Solid state is way less expensive to produce. It's easy to replicate. It's off-the-shelf parts. There's nothing special or unique about it. And when they break down, they swap out one thing for the other, and it's easy. That's absolutely right. But I can tell you, as somebody who has been manufacturing high-power PEMF now since 2006 and have been involved in the industry since 2000, there was a reason that spark chamber people haven't switched. We've tested every single system before all these companies were ready. on the market. There was a product that was out in the early 2000s called the Rayotron Alpha, and that was the first high power solid state system that came out of Europe. We tested it for 2 years in a clinic side by side with a high power spark chamber machine, and the results are nowhere near the same. So for my company, for my industry, we posture ourselves more as the Cadillac or the Porsche of high power PEMF. There's other devices and other technologies out there based on your need, based on your budget, based on things like that. But again, to wrap this up, when people are debating what's better and what should be done in it, we try to stick with the science. Let's try to stick with the known stuff. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm happy to do. Of course, when I went to go compile this video, I realized there was a million other things that I wanted to add, and which would turn it into a hour-long video. So let me just add one other part. When I talk about I've been to testing, you can look it up. There's a third-party independent laboratory called Intertech. You might even have their symbol that is on your phone. I've been to the laboratory many times doing testing for our product, even before I was involved in this industry and other products, and it is the known standard. So when I say, or people say, well, how do you know what has more frequencies or has less frequencies, or the Tesla or the Gauss? Because it's measurable. Anybody that is giving you measurements from a handheld meter on a high-powered or even moderately powered devices, people in the industry laugh at that because it is such an invalid test. It is such an interfered with test, it doesn't count. You need to go to these labs to test this technology out and see what it does. So with that being said, again, this isn't a knock on any of the high power, low power, spark, or solid state. It is more of an explanation of what the limitations are and what it does. And as a recap, really the biggest single challenge I see in our industry outside of what I mentioned before is the solid state devices that are being sold for the $25 to $35 or $45,000 device, when they're actually only a couple $1,000s to produce, and it's really bells, whistles, marketing, furniture that you're paying for. That's what's jacked up a lot of the prices in the industry. I can tell you, as a true manufacturer that does spark, myself and another company that is here in Los Angeles, our costs have only gone up through COVID, and we haven't increased our prices. So when people want to know why it's so expensive, it's expensive to produce. We have to create our own technology to replicate it, to make it off the shelf, to make it a modern part. The previous versions of this technology for 50 years were made by custom individuals. And so again, that's where part of the cost and the difference is. But again, you pay for what you get. There's a reason that high power spark chamber technology has been around for 120 years, and there's a reason it's going to be around for a lot longer. So with that being said, any questions, please hit me up, you guys.